Fudo is a virgin hero who wastes his life fighting against evil to save the world. However, this takes a turn when he starts a relationship with a busty goth Villianess. Now they will face each other in daylight to keep the act, while fighting all night under the sheets in secret. One day, Fudo was working out at the gym when Pink Ranger Haru came to call him for a meeting. In the meeting room, their boss informed them that a powerful Villianess named Desumi, nicknamed the Reaper Princess, had been wreaking havoc in the city. Professor Gelato warned them to be careful when dealing with her since she was very dangerous. Just then, the system alerted them that Gecko, the villain's organization, was making a move somewhere in town, so Gelato sent out the Rangers to stop them. Some minutes later, Desumi and her evil comrade, Culverin Bear, were terrorizing a park along with their minions, when the Rangers showed up and dramatically transformed into their Ranger gears before introducing themselves as the Gelato 5. Culverin Bear sent his minions after them, but the Rangers easily defeated them, so Desumi decided to join the battle. Fudo told the rest of the gang to handle Culverin Bear while he tangoed with Desumi. The two masked edgelords had a Chunin exam-level fight until an injured Culverin Bear announced that they were retreating. The Reaper Princess complimented Fudo for being the first person to go bar for bar with her, and she claimed that it was destiny before saying they will see each other again, making Fudo fluster. Later that day, Fudo was pulling off Dwayne Johnson's workout routine at the gym. When Gelato came to ask what was bothering him, he told him that he fell in love at first sight with someone but felt that he couldn't chase a romantic life with her because he's a hero. However, the old fart punched him in the face and motivated him to go confess his feelings to the girl of his dreams while promising to take responsibility for whatever happens. That evening, Fudo arranged a meeting with Desumi in an abandoned building, and when she arrived, the Virgin bluntly told her he'd loved her since the first moment they met. She reminded him of the fact that they were mortal enemies, but Bro said it was fine since he got permission from Gelato. Reaper Girl then accused him of trying to throw her off her game by bringing up romance, which she had no experience with, and she tried to attack him, but Fudo dodged. With tears in her eyes, she said there was no way anyone could love her because people spread all kinds of terrifying rumors about her. But Fudo proved to be the final boss of simping by calling out all her personal details, which he learnt by stalking her Instagram account. He pointed out all her feminine qualities to prove she wasn't the monster the rumors made her out to be. He said he loves her for what she is, and then asked her to be his girlfriend. She said they can't because they are enemies, but Fudo argues that they will work things out. After a long thinking and a long staring, Desumi finally agrees to be his girlfriend, but confessed that she doesn't know anything about dating, and Fudo confessed he was clueless as well. Sometime later, Fudo was having a romantic date with Desumi in a cherry blossom field, while his Power Rangers partners were clapping a bunch of masked idiots from her squad in the valley below. Fudo glazed Desumi for her beauty and stared at her until she got flustered. The simp overlord then asked her politely to hold hands with him, but Desumi couldn't bring herself to do it because she felt it was too soon for that. However, Bro argued that it was normal to hold hands on the third date, and when she realized how down bad he was, she eventually reached out her hand to hold his own. However, before their hands could make contact, Hayato came to check on Fudo, causing the dumb couple to put on their masks and start fighting each other. The shock waves emitted from the lovebirds fooled Hayato into thinking they were having a Super Saiyan battle, so he left them. After he left, Fudo pointed out that they were holding hands, and Desumi celebrated the fact that it didn't take them 2 seasons to achieve this like every other romance anime. Some minutes later, Desumi told Fudo about her cat Helko and reminded him of the fact that they couldn't afford to get caught because it would become national news. Fudo agreed to keep their relationship a secret, and Desumi said she hoped the world would eventually become a place where they could see each other without any worries. Just then, Misaki came to check on Fudo, so Desumi finished Fudo off with a JoJo punch rush, beating him into a pulp. Fudo promises he will have his revenge soon, and she offers Tuesday at 3 o'clock. 6 months earlier, during a battle between the Gelato 5 and Desumi's forces, after minutes of evading each other's attacks, Desumi landed a Detroit smash right in his stomach and she smiled because she thought the match was over. But Fudo tossed her in the air. She tried to squash him with her chained mace, but Fudo deflected her attack easily with his blade, causing her to compliment him for being tougher than she had heard in rumors. And as she smiled at him, Fudo marveled at her pretty face. Sometime later, a news reporter on a helicopter announced that there was an ongoing battle between the Gelato 5 and Gecko. On the battlefield, the Rangers were making quick work of Culverin Bear and his minions, while Fudo and Desumi squared off against each other. The news reporter and everyone watching at home started cheering for Fudo, unknown to them that the lovesick nerd was giving battle cues to Desumi during the fight so that they wouldn't actually hit each other. Using their acting skills, they convinced everyone that they were heading somewhere private to have a duel, but when they got to a secluded part of the area, they took off their masks in preparation for another date. Fudo asked Desumi why she was sitting far away from her, and she claimed she was acting normal. But when he tried to close the distance, she yelled at him to stay away from her. This shattered the bro's spirit, so she explained that she kept her distance because she thought she'd be smelly from all the fighting she had done earlier. Fudo sat beside her and promised to never leave her, no matter how badly she smelled. Desumi felt he was being insensitive, so she got petty and decided to face the other way for the rest of the day. However, she couldn't stop herself from glancing at Fudo, and he was so moved by how charming she looked that he took a picture of her. When she asked what he was doing, he said he loved her when she was angry and proceeded to take even more photos of her until she stopped him with a smack. She asked him to use her smartphone since the dollar store camera he was using couldn't share pictures, and when they sat beside each other to take the picture, they both got flustered because they'd never been that close before. Desumi started taking photos of them, but their private photo shoot was interrupted when Misaki came to check on Fudo. Noticing this, Desumi acted like she'd been defeated by Fudo. Fudo tried to suggest leaving the area, but Misaki said the television station had requested an interview with them, and Fudo immediately gave Desumi a signal to play along. He introduced himself to the interviewer, and she asked him how he felt about the Reaper Princess. Fudo said there was no one else like her, and babbled on about how he thought about her every day. This made Desumi embarrassed, and when the reporter noticed she was tweaking, Fudo gaslighted her into believing it was her imagination. The interviewer then asked Fudo if he had a girlfriend, and this put bro in a tough spot because he knew Desumi was right behind him. However, Misaki pulled a save by telling her that Fudo could never have a girlfriend because he was a musclehead who only cared about bodybuilding. The reporter said it was a waste because all the female fans wanted a taste of his gelato.
What do you mean by that?
And Misaki told her that they were taking applications for a date with Fudo because she wanted to teach him a bit about romance. After they left, Fudo met up with Desumi, and she looked at him like he had just run over her cat, so he asked her what was wrong. Desumi said she was bothered by his rapidly expanding female fanbase, so he assured her that she was the only girl for him and claimed that he'd do anything for her. Desumi then asked him to take her on a real date because it was something she'd always wanted to do, and Fudo told her to meet him the next day at Central Park. This made her happy, and after she left, Fudo realized that he had no idea what to do on a real date. That evening, Fudo searched Google for the best activities to do on a date, but the number of options he saw made him worry that he wouldn't be able to settle on anything before the date. He kept racking his brain until a half-drunk Misaki came by and complimented him for doing his homework because she thought he was researching for the fan dating applications. Fudo told her he couldn't figure out what a proper date involved, so she advised him to pick something that he and the girl enjoyed doing. The next day, Fudo arrived at the park wearing a disguise, and Desumi arrived shortly after in city clothes looking like a snack, which made him lose his mind. When Desumi asked what they'd be doing that day, Fudo showed her a date plan and told her he'd already worked everything out in advance. However, the musclehead took her to a gym to kick off their date, and they did an intense workout session before sprinting to the park. A while later, they sat by a bench and Fudo said they'd have dinner together, causing Desumi to celebrate. However, he handed her an energy bar and started babbling some nonsense about insects until she left for the bathroom. After she left, Fudo celebrated because he had no idea he was fumbling the date, and he prepared for the next item on the list, which was an anatomy exhibit. Just apologized, got a call from Misaki, who told him to forget about the advice she gave him the previous day, and basically told him not to do all the things he'd already done during his date with Desumi. After the call, Fudo realized he'd messed up, so he ran off to find Desumi. He searched everywhere for her but couldn't find her, and just when he started to lose hope, Desumi surprised him by placing a cold drink on his face. She explained that she went to get drinks for them. Fudo was shocked, and when he told her about how he thought she hated his date, she said she was content with just being out with him. She also said he should be easy on himself because she loved him for who he was, and didn't care if everyone saw them as weird. This put Fudo in a romantic mood, and he was about to kiss her until they both got distress calls from their organizations, which forced them to leave the area. A while later, Culver and Bear and his minions were fighting against the Rangers, but Fudo and Desumi couldn't join the fight because they were busy having romantic fantasies about each other. Sometime later, Gelato was playing cards with Misaki, and he brought up the fact that there hadn't been any activity from Gecko in the past 2 weeks. Misaki was happy about this because it gave them some time to relax, but Fudo wasn't happy about it because he hadn't seen his beloved Desumi in a long time. He started brainstorming about how to solve this issue until the alarm started buzzing and it was announced that there were signs of a new weapon being developed at Gecko headquarters. The team was instructed to infiltrate their headquarters and destroy the weapon. Misaki said the mission would be impossible for them since they didn't have Tom Cruise in their team, but Gelato said someone has to do it. He pointed out that it had to either be her or Fudo. Misaki was about to volunteer when Fudo interrupted her by offering to do the infiltration himself. Misaki tried to explain that it was dangerous, but Fudo said he had to go no matter what, and this showcase of determination moved Gelato to tears. However, Fudo had no heroic intentions at all, because he only wanted to see his glorious queen Desumi again. At the Gecko base, the evil soldiers saluted Desumi as she walked through the hallway, and they guessed that the mean expression on her face was because she woke up on the wrong side of the bed that morning. But she was actually in agony because she hadn't seen her hubby in 2 weeks. With a deadly stare, she asked the combatants when they'd get to face the heroes again, and they immediately groveled while telling her that they had no idea. As she walked further down the hall, she felt distressed because during the horoscope reading on the news that morning, the newscaster said the one she was waiting for wouldn't come to see her. The anchor also said her lucky item was a cute pouch, which was why she was carrying a pink pouch around, and she felt that the news was a sham because nothing had happened yet. Just then, Culver and Bear appeared and showed off his new weapons, which he named the Neo-Culverin cannons. The dumb bear guessed that she was using her pouch to carry some deadly weapons, and she tried to explain that it was just a makeup purse, but he kept on glazing her as he walked away. After he left, Desumi thought that all hope was lost, but then her virgin knight in shining red armor jumped out of an air duct and told her he missed her. She said she was happy to see him too and put pushed him into her room so that he wouldn't get spotted by her comrades. Fudo was amazed by how girly her room was, and when she asked what he was doing there, he said he desperately wanted to see her. Her face got bright red and she tried to warn him that it was dangerous, but he interrupted by telling her to play a card game with him. Back at the Rangers base, Misaki asked Gelato if he'd heard from Fudo, and he said he hadn't before, advising her to have some faith in him. Meanwhile, Desumi won the first round of their card game, and she attempted to smack him in the arm as punishment for losing. Just then, a combatant appeared on the screen to give a report, so she hid Fudo by turning his face into a chair. The combatants informed her of an intruder in the base and warned her to be on high alert. He then pointed out that he saw a man in her room earlier, but Desumi gaslighted him into believing it was his imagination. After the call, Desumi apologized to Fudo, but Bro was already in La La Land because of the softness of her plots. Just then, Culver and Bear walked into the room, so Desumi pulled another desperation move by shoving herself and Fudo into her closet. Fudo was about to explode in more ways than one, because Desumi was rubbing her cushions all over his body in the tight space, and he noticed that something was preventing him from breathing properly, so he tried to take it off. When he grabbed it, they saw that it was one of Desumi's melon guards, causing Desumi to scream out of embarrassment and punch Fudo in the face. The impact drove Fudo through the closet door and into the face of Culver and Bear, causing the bear to fall on the floor. Culver and Bear's special weapon suddenly activated and caused an explosion in the enemy base. Gelato and Misaki got an alert that the mission was complete, so they praised Fudo for being awesome. A while later, Fudo and Desumi were in a forest staring at the barbecued gecko base, and Fudo apologized to Desumi for suddenly dropping by. Desumi apologized as well for being a terrible host and told Fudo that he had a cut on his cheek. He said it was no problem, but she still patched him up and he made her smile by calling her pouch pretty. Afterwards, Fudo gave Desumi his number, and she told him she'd call him that night. Several hours later, Desumi called Fudo's number, but his mother picked the call instead. When he dragged the phone from his mom, Desumi advised him to get a smartphone, and he agreed to do so. The next day, all the executives of Gecko had a meeting with the head of Gecko named Bossler, and he told them about a monster called the Ultimate Phantom, which he was creating by gathering negative energy from humans. When he asked for suggestions on their next target, the Beast Princess said she just wanted to fight, and the Steel Princess also gave a useless contribution. And when it was Desumi's turn to speak, she suggested some dating spots. Bossler turned her down, but Culver and Bear said an amusement park would be great for gathering negative energy from humans, so Bossler agreed to use that as their next target. A while later, Fudo got a text message from Desumi where she revealed that her group was planning to attack an amusement park in 3 days, and he tried to reply using Siri but only ended up exposing his plans to Misaki, who now intended to eavesdrop on him. On that day, Misaki and Haru followed Fudo around until Desumi showed up alongside Culver and Bear and challenged him to a fight. Misaki and Haru joined the fight, and this allowed the lovebirds to run off for their date. They enjoyed several park rides together, and afterwards Fudo was feeling sick, so Desumi made him feel better by holding his hand. When they noticed that the battle was over, they decided to go back down to join their squads. After school one day, Desumi walked through the streets with some friends, and one of them asked her to join them for karaoke, but she declined, saying she had work to do. The friend said she'd never get a boyfriend if she kept overworking herself, and Desumi immediately lost composure the minute she heard the word boyfriend. The other friend pointed out that Fudo was in the area, and Desumi got excited until she saw that he was having a lunch date with Haru. She freaked out, and her friends made things worse by talking about how great Fudo and Haru looked as a couple. The jealousy became too much for Desumi's tiny brain to handle, so she ran off with tears in her eyes. Meanwhile, Fudo pointed out that Haru rarely called him out like that, so she apologized because she knew he was a very busy man. When he asked her what she wanted to ask him, she started panicking because she knew what she was about to ask was a rude question. However, she couldn't stop thinking about a photo she saw where Fudo and Desumi were having fun on a roller coaster, and she was curious to know if the girl beside him was his girlfriend, but wondered if it was okay for her to ask about his private life. Fudo saw her twitching like a dehydrated fish, so he recommended a training book as well as some protein to help her with her worries. Haru asked the musclehead why he was giving her that, so he brought up the fact that she was new to the Ranger squad and presumed that she was having troubles with her strength training. Haru was genuinely baffled by his cluelessness, and he asked her to follow the training regiment in the book for the next 6 months in order to get a steel body that would get her through any battle situation. She interrupted his gym bro advice and revealed that she was concerned about a picture, but the dumb musclehead assumed she was talking about a picture in the book, so he started yapping about workout again. He gave her advice on different ways to increase her strength, and this made her certain that he didn't have a girlfriend, so she cheerfully thanked him for the advice. Just then, they got word of an attack in the city, so they rushed out to face the enemy. Somewhere in town, Culver and Bear was blasting a couple of buildings with his Culverine cannons while Desumi stood quietly on a cliff, and it didn't take long before the Gelato 5 arrived at the scene. Culver and Bear ordered his companions to attack them, so Desumi and the other combatants charged at the Gelato squad. Fudo anticipated getting to chat with Desumi as usual, but she suddenly sent him flying with a brutal kick. He thought his timing was off, so he tried to tell her to coordinate her attacks with him, but she suddenly started spinning her mace. He gave her the usual wink signals, but she ignored them and hit him in the face with her weapon. He tried to convince her to go elsewhere with him, but she declined and used an ultimate move called Reaper's Whirlwind to blast the red loser into a nearby building. When she entered the building, she tried to approach Fudo, but she suddenly started throwing up. Seeing this, Fudo advised her not to use moves she hasn't thoroughly practiced, but she responded by repeatedly trying to punch his head off. Fudo dodged her punches while asking her what was going on with her, and she said she saw him at the cafe with Haru before punching him in the face. As she continued spamming him with blows, Fudo blocked and explained that he was only teaching her about bodybuilding. Desumi said she knew better than anyone that he'd never cheat on her, but seeing them together sparked a hidden jealousy in her, causing her to think that he deserved to be with a cute loli like Haru instead of an outcast like her. Fudo said she was wrong and claimed that she was the girliest girl he knew, but Desumi said he was wrong. She tried to punch him again, but Fudo blocked and she said that love has made her weak. She further claimed that dating Fudo had made her a pathetic mess of a woman, and Fudo didn't agree with her. She got teary-eyed as she claimed that she wasn't cut out for love, so Fudo hugged her tightly and told her that he'd love only her for the rest of his life. He asked her to trust him, and she agreed to do so. Later that evening, Culverin Bear was carried out on a stretcher after suffering his millionth L against the Rangers while Desumi and Fudo were having a private meeting in an abandoned building. Fudo suddenly started laughing, and when Desumi asked why he was doing that, he said it was because he got to see a different side of her that day. Desumi reminded him that she hadn't forgiven him for having a date with Harada, and he struggled to come up with a response, so she promised to forgive him if he takes her out on a proper date as well. Fudo agreed and she held hands with him. Just then, Haru appeared beside them and told the lovebirds that it's all over for them. The next day, Fudo shivered outside the meeting room as he remembered Haru telling him after the battle that she heard his entire conversation, which made him scared that she'd expose him to the rest of the group. He wondered how to escape the situation, but Haru suddenly appeared behind him and told him their meeting was about to start. When they entered the meeting room, Galato said Haru needed to make an announcement, and this made Fudo fear for his life. However, she simply announced that she and Fudo needed to leave early because their test was coming up, and Fudo heaved a sigh of relief. Afterwards, Fudo stalked Haru for the rest of the day and wondered why she didn't expose him to the group. A while later, Fudo met up with Desumi, and he told her about how Harata was acting normal the past week despite knowing their secret. So Desumi decided to silence her the bloody way. Fudo told her to calm down, and Desumi sent him to get some drinks for her so she could meet with Haru. When Desumi asked Haru why she hadn't exposed their relationship, Haru asked her to fight her. She changed into her ranger gear and charged at Desumi, but Desumi floored her easily. When Haru woke up, Desumi asked her what she was after, and she told her that the reason she joined the team was because she was in love with Fudo. She also told Desumi about a time when she saved her from thugs, and confessed that she didn't ruin their relationship because she saw Fudo smiling in a way she'd never seen before when he was meeting with Desumi. She started crying as she said she didn't have the right to steal happiness from either of them, so Desumi hugged her and cried alongside her. When Fudo returned, he was surprised to see Haru napping on Desumi's lap, so he got scared that Desumi sent her to the afterlife. Some days later, the executives of Gecko were having a meeting, and Boslar announced that Desumi and Bear's team were the best performing team among their group. He also revealed that the Beast Princess came in second for another month in a row, and he called Desumi a role model for evil because she had perfect records in every field. He said she gained a bunch of points by beating up the Red Ranger in their recent encounter, and advised the rest of the princesses to be just like her. A combatant interviewer asked Desumi to give a victory speech, but she unenthusiastically replied that she was pleased with her victory, and they handed her a Boslar doll as a reward for her performance. However, Beast Princess Kiki got so jealous that she started yelling at Desumi, and she asked her to have a duel with her, but Desumi offered her the Boslar doll instead. She angrily smacked the doll to the ground, causing Boslar to freak out as she walked away. A while later, Desumi was ordering her lunch and she overheard Kiki telling the Steel Princess about how she wanted to take the #1 spot no matter what. The two of them started bonding over their lunch, and Desumi was about to walk away until the Steel Princess revealed that she'd fallen in love with someone. Desumi immediately jumped into the conversation and expressed how happy she was that Steel Girl had fallen in love. When Steel Princess asked Desumi if she was interested in the love lives of others, Desumi said yes, and this shocked Kiki, because she never thought Desumi was the girly type. When Desumi asked the Steel Princess what kind of man he was, she said he was terribly wild yet very understanding, and this made Desumi pleased. She also revealed that the person was a co-worker, and Kiki told her to give up because workplace romances were off limits for them. The Steel Princess said she couldn't stop herself, despite knowing that her feelings were wrong, and Kiki told Desumi to slap some sense into her, but instead she offered to support her in her romantic chase. When Desumi asked what she wanted to do next, she said she wanted to confess her feelings to the person, but she suddenly put on her mask and admitted that she had no attractive qualities as a woman. She said there was no way the person would accept her feelings, but Desumi took off her mask and said she was sure she could make the confession. When the Steel Princess asked how, Desumi said she'd help her develop her femininity, and Kiki ranted that evil soldiers didn't need femininity. Steel Princess asked Desumi if she really thought she could pull it off, and Desumi said yes before promising to help her. Some hours later, Powerpuff Princesses did some stretches together, and Desumi explained that Pilates are great for their mental and physical well-being, but noticed that Steel Princess couldn't move a muscle because of her heavy armor. The next activity was cooking, and Steel Princess messed up a task as simple as slicing up a fish. Up next, the girls were supposed to read a book about femininity, but Steel Brain fell asleep instead. A while later, the girls painted their nails, but Steel Princess ended up making her hand look like that of a murderer instead of a normal girl. Afterwards, the girls did some exercises on surfboards, but Steel Girl sank because her armor was too heavy, and she told Desumi she was giving up on love before walking out of the room. Soon after, Culver and Bear and his forces engaged in a heated battle with the Rangers, while Fudo and Desumi met privately in a spot nearby. Desumi told Fudo that she felt terrible for making Steel feel worse about her situation, and admitted that expressing feelings to loved ones isn't easy. When she asked Fudo what he expected from his partner, he said he was fine so long as Desumi was beside him, and this got her so flustered that she smacked him. She said there had to be something he wanted from her, but Fudo said he loved her just as she was, and she blushed while telling him that he was hopeless. Desumi thanked him and said she was a very lucky girl before thanking him for helping her. That evening, Desumi went into the Steel Princess's room, where she saw that she'd locked herself inside a weird chamber called the Iron Labyrinth, and Kiki warned her that approaching Steel Girl in this state would be dangerous. However, Desumi broke one of the chamber's spikes and ignored its spike attacks while telling Steel Princess that she never had to change in the first place. She went up close to her and some steel spikes attacked her from behind, but Kiki destroyed them with her beast claws, allowing her to take off the Steel Princess's mask. Steel Girl was already crying, and Desumi advised her not to give up on love. Steel admitted that she never wanted to give up on her feelings in the first place, and she thanked Desumi and Kiki for giving her the courage she needed. She took off her armor while telling them that she'd confess her feelings to the one she loved, and they were stunned by the enormous melon she was packing. A while later, Desumi and Kiki watched from the corner as Steel Girl confessed her love to Culver and Bear, and when he accepted her, Kiki freaked out while Desumi felt happy for Steel. The next day, Culver and Bear met up with a Temu version of a special grade curse who was having lunch in the cafeteria and asked if he could borrow the Steel Princess. The monster said yes, but pointed out that Steel Girl was pretty stupid, and this made Culver and Bear yell at him. Some hours later, Culver and Bear and the Steel Princess pulled off a combo attack called Waves of Love, which overwhelmed the Rangers, and Blue Ranger Hayato decided to go call Fudo to help out. However, when he went to the building where the lovebirds were hiding, Haru told him Fudo wasn't there and even tried to fight him when he refused to believe her. After he left, Fudo and Desumi praised Harada, and she cheerfully tiptoed away. Desumi then brought out a bento box which she made for Fudo and offered to feed it to him. Fudo agreed, but when he reached out to eat the food, his stomach suddenly started hurting badly. He tried to fight through the pain as he asked her to feed it to him, but she refused, so he passed out. 3 days later, Gelato and the Ranger girls were in the hospital beside Fudo, and they were pleased that he was finally getting discharged after an appendicitis surgery. Misaki tried to feed him an apple, but he stopped himself from eating it, because he wanted Desumi to be the first one to feed him. Haru noticed this, so she ate the apple instead, and they left Fudo to rest in the hospital room. After they left, Fudo was about to start lifting some weights, but Desumi suddenly appeared and played around with him for a bit before feeding him the apple. However, their romantic moment was interrupted by Fudo's mother, who suddenly took Desumi away to watch One Piece with her. Some days later, the Rangers were battling against the Gecko agents, while Fudo and Desumi had another romantic date on the cliff above them. Fudo brought up the fact that it was summer and asked Desumi what she'd like to do together as a couple that season, so she went through a bunch of fun summer activities on her phone. When she mentioned visiting the beach, Fudo's Smurf-sized brain overheated because he started having fantasies of Desumi in a swimsuit. A while later, Kiki met up with Desumi at the Gecko cafeteria, and as they had lunch together, Kiki asked Desumi why she joined Gecko in the first place. Desumi said it was her mom that applied for her, and when Kiki asked her how she passed the super hard exams, she said she simply did her best. Kiki wondered if the reason she wasn't taking her villain role seriously was because she didn't mean to apply for it, and Desumi interrupted her brainstorming by suggesting a beach for their next attack. Just then, all the Gecko executives were summoned to the conference room, so Kiki dragged Desumi there. The secret society Gecko has an uncompromising hierarchy, as its 6 squadrons are led by their 6 strongest monsters, with the Princess series serving below them as sub-leaders. Bossler announced that he decided to create a new monster to establish a new squadron, and he asked Desumi to step forward. He congratulated her and announced that he was promoting her from Princess series to Monster. He said she'd undergo an experiment which would grant her greater power by fusing her with a monster, and Kiki was losing her mind over the fact that they chose the airhead over her. Desumi tried to refuse the offer, but Culver and Bear interrupted by telling her how proud he was, and the other monsters complimented her as well. However, Bossler told Desumi that he intended to fuse her with a mountain gorilla, causing her to freak out. She tried to reject the offer again, but he ignored her and announced that the enhancement surgery would take place the next day. That evening, Desumi was in her room staring at a photo she took with Fudo, and she worried that after the surgery she wouldn't be able to go on dates with Fudo. Just then, she got a call from her dad, who was a lifetime soldier at Gecko, and he congratulated her for her promotion along with the rest of her family. When her mom took over the phone, she tried to tell her she didn't want the promotion, but her mom cut her off by telling her that her hard work was helping her sister Urami come out of her shell. She then handed Urami the phone to talk to Desumi, and Urami told her of her plans to become a badass Gecko warrior like her when she graduates because she was her idol. After ending the call, Desumi realized that her Gecko teammates and her family would be upset if she turned down the promotion, but she wondered what Fudo would think about the matter. Just then, she got a call from Fudo, and when she answered, he told her he simply wanted to hear her voice before asking her if anything was wrong. Desumi suddenly made a crying sound, so Fudo told her to give him an hour before ending the call. An hour later, Fudo informed Desumi through text that he was outside her home, so she met him on the rooftop. When she told him about the monster promotion, he claimed she'd be the world's cutest gorilla, so she smacked him while telling him to take it seriously. When she asked Fudo what to do, he said it didn't matter what he thought, and asked her what she wanted to do. She realized that she hadn't thought of what she wanted, and Fudo told her that her kindness towards everyone else was one of the reasons he loved her. He advised her to show a bit of that kindness towards herself and once again asked her what she wanted to do. She realized that she had the right to choose, so she pointed out that she wouldn't be able to go on romantic dates with him if she got turned into a Queen Kong, and confessed that meeting Fudo had made her want to do so many new things. She decided that she didn't want to become a gorilla yet because she wanted to be able to lean on Fudo as she was currently doing. The next day, she told Bossler her decision, and everyone in the conference room started yelling at her for fumbling her power-up opportunity. Bossler tried to intimidate her, but she firmly told him no again, so he suddenly switched up and started glazing her for her natural talent. He presumed that the reason she was rejecting the offer was because she believed accepting the power of an animal would be admitting her weakness, so he told the other executives to clap for her. Afterwards, she thanked Fudo through text and he told her she was amazing for following her heart. Some days later, Desumi arrived at the beach in a swimsuit, and Culver and Bear chewed her out for treating their mission like a vacation, when he himself was having a relaxing time with the Steel Princess. When Bear asked her about the intel she had, she revealed the confidential Gelato 5 information which she heard from Fudo about the Rangers Megazord, which they would be testing at the beach on that day. She also pointed out that the heroes were yet to arrive, so he advised her to act discreetly since their mission was to destroy the giant robot and Steel Girl. Reminded her that it was a combined mission between 3 gecko groups. She noticed that Kiki was hiding behind a rock, and when she asked her what was wrong, Kiki said she felt embarrassed about the school swimsuit she was wearing. The Steel Princess said she looked good, and when she stood beside her, Kiki yelled at her to go somewhere else because her oversized milk factories were making her jealous. Just then, the Gelato 5 submarine showed up, and Gelato accidentally fired some missiles on the island, which forced Culverine Bear to retreat along with his troops. When Fudo approached the island, Desumi left Kiki behind the rock they were hiding and rushed to greet him. When he saw her pretty swimsuit, he started glazing her, so she smacked him in the chest repeatedly before following her to another part of the beach. Kiki was about to join the mission herself, but when she looked outside, she saw that Desumi had buried Fudo in the sand and thought the Reaper Princess was torturing him. Suddenly, Hayato showed up and tried to riz her up, so she smacked him in the face. Kiki noticed that Desumi was having fun with the Ranger Squad, and Hayato chased her around the beach like a desperate idiot. Desumi had some udon with the gang, and together they watched some fireworks, which Gelato activated from the submarine. During the display, Misaki thanked Desumi for making Fudo a better man, and they all enjoyed themselves even more before Gelato clumsily hit a button which made the entire robot blow up. Seeing this, Kiki thought it was Desumi's handwork, so she got even more terrified of the Reaper Princess. Some days later, Dago was making some dinner, and when the Ranger girls asked him what he was still doing there, he explained that he was making Fudo some rations because he was working a late shift. Haru said it was impressive that he pulled off a Gordon Ramsay special despite being busy with scouting new members for the team, and Misaki tried to convince him to become bedroom buddies with her, but Bro showed no interest at all. He reminded her that workplace relationships were off limits as he walked away, and after he left, the ladies discussed how calm and level-headed Daigo was. When Dago arrived at Fudo's room, Fudo thanked him for making dinner and informed him that he was making an exchange diary for Desumi. Immediately, Dago heard her name. He collapsed on the ground with the food and started panicking like Megumi did when the grade 3 curse challenged him. A while later, Dago woke up on the hospital bed and Fudo handed him some water before asking him if he knew Desumi. Daigo confirmed that he knew her, so Fudo asked if he had any kind of history with her. Dago said Desumi was the monster he made, and when Fudo realized that they knew each other since their early years, he asked Daigo to tell him everything he knew about them. Daigo tried to warn him that he and Desumi's story was more terrifying than the Scream movies, but Fudo said he was eager to hear it, so Daigo agreed to tell him. 10 years ago in Fukuoka, Daigo was called the Honored One at a prestigious karate school because he had no rivals among the older students, let alone his peers. One day, Desumi appeared at the dojo, and the first thing she did was promise not to break any of the students the way she did to her toys at home. This made everyone laugh at her, and the sensei put Daigo in charge of Desumi, so he asked her to punch him in the stomach in order to test her strength. She delivered a brutal punch which made Bro's entire life flash before his eyes, and when he regained consciousness, he acted like the punch barely fazed him even though he was on spaghetti legs. Desumi praised him for being cool and asked if she could punch him again, but Daigo said it was enough for that day, so she left with her dad. A few days later, Daigo saw the dojo instructor taking down the sign, and when he asked what was wrong, Sensei said he was closing down the dojo to become a McDonald's worker because he got slimed by Desumi. Hearing this, Daigo rushed to meet Desumi in the training room, and she started crying over the fact that every place she had fun eventually went away. Daigo consoled her by offering to become her personal teacher, and she was happy to accept him. However, Desumi nearly unalived Bro during their first training session, and he tries to pose as a cool guy so he wouldn't lose face as her teacher. He worked hard to improve himself so that he wouldn't die during one of their training sessions, but she still destroyed him in every sparring match. Eventually, rumors about Desumi's strength spread within the city, causing some hooligans to challenge her. but she clapped them in no time and soon gained the nickname the Reaper of Oyafukadori. During Daigo's last winter of high school, he moved to Tokyo after his parents divorced, and he decided to settle things in a duel with Desumi. He put on his karate gear and told Desumi that it would be their final practice. He'd trained for years in order to slay the monster he created, but all it took was 2 minutes for Desumi to destroy him, and he gaslighted her into believing he went easy on her when in reality Bro went plus ultra during their fight. As he walked away, Desumi tearfully asked him if they'd meet again and practice like they used to. But Bro wanted nothing to do with her, and he was eventually scouted as a hero. In the present, Daigo told Fudo he felt pathetic about the fact that he subconsciously sealed his memories out of fear for Desumi, and he wondered what brought her to Tokyo. He then reminded Fudo that workplace romance was forbidden and asked him to break up with Desumi. Fudo was stunned, but Daigo shocked him even more by saying that he was going to scout Desumi to join their team. Daigo was so scared of her that he couldn't even say her name without wanting to throw up, but he decided to scout her, because it was his duty as the group recruiter. Fudo pictured Desumi as the Black Ranger of the Gelato 5, and he thought she looked cute in the gear. Daigo decided to learn more about Desumi before scouting her, so he asked Fudo to follow him. A while later, Fudo officially introduced Desumi to Daigo in a diner, and she was excited about meeting her teacher. However, the Desumi-phobe Eggsea Green Ranger trembled to the point where his coffee spilled all over the table, and she started to reminisce about the good old days when they used to train together. Desumi then suggested training with him again, and Daigo immediately had a panic attack, so Fudo helped him out by telling Desumi that he was an extremely busy man. She apologized for getting carried away and left to get them some drinks. After she left, Daigo asked Fudo if she was making him stay with her, using threats, and Fudo boldly replied that he truly loves Desumi. When Desumi returned, Daigo told her that he wanted to scout her to join the Gelato 5 because he believed her powers could be used for justice. Desumi started fantasizing about going on romantic dates with Fudo in their ranger gear, but she declined his offer when she remembered all her friends at Gecko. When Daigo asked her why, she said she was more than happy where she was and nearly outed herself as a member of Gecko before Fudo covered her mouth and made up a dumb cover story for her. Daigo saw her acting all lovey-dovey with Fudo, so he presumed that love had made her weak. He felt he could finally beat her and overcome his trauma, so he told her to step out for a duel with him. When they got outside, he told Desumi that if she won, he would give up on scouting her, and added that if he won, she'd give up her relationship with Fudo and join the Gelato 5. She was confused, so he explained that workplace relationships were forbidden. Hearing this, she went into beast mode and Daigo transformed into his ranger form in order to block her attack, but he still got folded in seconds. Desumi accused her of going easy on him again, and he played along by lying that he wanted to give her a win since it was their reunion. Afterwards, Fudo and Desumi walked through the street together, and they arrived at a spot where Desumi suddenly grabbed his arm. As they moved along, a mysterious hooded girl took pictures of them from a corner. The next morning, Fudo met the Ranger girls in the meeting room and Masaki handed him a letter which was addressed to him. When he looked at the contents, he immediately freaked out because it was a picture of himself and Desumi holding each other with the words, "I know everything" written on it. A while later, Desumi was having lunch in class and one of her classmates started glazing her for the 5-star meal she made. Suddenly, a pink-haired girl in her class named Hojo stole a piece of Desumi's food, causing her to shiver in fear. Desumi's friend tried to challenge the girl on her behalf, but Hojo gave her a terrifying stare which made her soil herself. Just then, Kiki and Steel Princess Kyoko arrived, causing the girl to celebrate that she was saved by the student council president and disciplinary officer. Kiki told Hojo to come to the guidance office later because her delinquent style of dressing was against school rules. Hojo teased her for being a newbie in romance and claimed that she always got what she wanted before leaving the classroom. Later that evening, Fudo met up with Hojo at the park, and she revealed herself to be the one who took the mystery photo. He asked her who she was, but she refused to tell him her name and pointed out that she could send out the picture whenever she wanted. Fudo said it would be a problem if she did that, so she told him to play along so that the picture wouldn't go public. Suddenly, Fudo groveled before her and begged her to put a censorship bar over her eyes when she published the photo. Hojo was surprised that the idiot wasn't bothered by their picture going public, so she reminded him that his reputation would go up in flames if the picture got leaked. However, Fudo said he didn't care about his reputation and added that he didn't want to cause trouble for Desumi. He then claimed that if the uncensored version of the picture was released, Desumi would go viral as an angel on Earth and agents would be lining up to recruit her as a model or idol. Hojo called him a weirdo and said he had to do whatever she said in order to stop her from releasing the photo. Fudo agreed, but when she asked him to break up with Desumi, he immediately refused. He asked her if she'd accept an alternative, so she put on her phone recorder and told him to say he loves her. However, Fudo immediately refused, so she smacked him and tried to call the tabloids. Fudo asked her if she was trying to come between them, but she told him to shut up and gave him one last chance by asking him to kiss her hand. Fudo stared at her intensely until she eventually smacked him in the face again. She admitted that she was embarrassed and promised that she'd think of way more disgusting things for him to do the next day before running off. Later that day, Fudo told Desumi about what happened with Hojo, and Desumi immediately opted to crack her skull open. He also told her about her request to say he loved her and break up with her. Desumi told Fudo that Hojo was in love, and Bro couldn't believe that he managed to rizz up yet another baddie. Desumi was feeling sad, so Fudo comforted her by patting her head and assuring her that she had nothing to worry about because he had no intentions of accepting her feelings. Later that day, Fudo met up with Hojo at the park and started giving a rejection speech until she interrupted him with a slap and asked what he was talking about. Fudo said he thought she was in love with him, but she clarified that Desumi was the one she'd fallen in love with, and Fudo was shocked to hear this. In school, Hojo was avoided by everyone in school because of how scary she dressed until Desumi approached her one day and complimented her pretty nails. Desumi introduced herself to her with a smile on her face, and it was at that moment that Hojo completely fell in love with her. In the present, Hojo told Fudo that she'd had a crush on Desumi since then because of how honest she was, and Fudo didn't react, so she apologized for boring him with her feelings. However, Fudo said there was nothing to be sorry for because he was glad he finally found someone who adored Desumi as much as he did. He offered her a chance to spend all night simping for Desumi with him, and she smiled while saying he was weird. She declined his offer and apologized for the trouble she made before warning him that she'd steal Desumi from him if he didn't keep his guard up. The next day, the Powerpuff Girls of Gecko walked through the hallway, and they saw the Heat Princess, who couldn't even extend a greeting to them, as they walked past her. After they left, the Heat Princess took off her mask to reveal herself as Hojo, and she said Desumi looked as pretty as Barbie that day. Sometime later, Fudo and Desumi were having another secret meeting during a battle when Haru showed up and asked Desumi if Gecko had any plans the next day. Desumi revealed that all attacks were off because Bosslar would be absent the next day, so Haru asked Fudo to help her study for their upcoming test. Desumi asked if Fudo was a good student, and Haru told her that despite his looks, he was a top 10 student at the academy. Fudo agreed to have a study hangout with her, and Haru noticed that Desumi was feeling salty about it, so she decided to add her to the study group. The next day, the three of them arrived at Desumi's home, and Haru immediately started panicking, so Desumi gave them some Gecko uniforms to wear as a disguise. When they entered her room, Fudo went full simp mode, so Helko the cat smacked him back to his senses. During the study session, they found out that Desumi got perfect scores in all their tests, so she apologized for lying to them and confessed that she just wanted to study with her hubby. She then offered to teach Haru alongside Fudo, but both of them only made her more confused with their babbling. Haru eventually decided to leave, and she told them they were so smart that they'd get any university of their choice. After she left, Desumi asked Fudo about his university plans, so he told her about how he wanted to study education in order to achieve his goal of becoming a teacher. When he asked Desumi about her plans, she said her new goal was to attend the same university as him so that she'd have a front row seat to see his dreams come true. However, she pointed out that her father wouldn't agree because he wanted her to go full-time with Gecko after school, so Fudo offered to talk to her father for her. Just then, the doorbell rang and Desumi thought it would be Haru, but it turned out to be her father and her sister Urami. Desumi helped Urami carry her suitcase in, and Urami asked her who the masked man in her room was. Desumi's father did the Gecko greeting, and Fudo was initially clueless on how to respond to it, but his 2 brain cells finally activated, so he greeted him back. Desumi told Urami that he was a friend of hers, and Fudo introduced himself to Desumi's dad as Mudo. Desumi's dad asked what a random Gecko foot soldier was doing in the room of the Reaper Princess, and Desumi lied that he was there to help her study for her upcoming test. The deadbeat called her an oaf and said she needed to focus on world domination instead of studying. He also insulted her room for being too girly and hung up a Gecko flag on her wall. Desumi told him he was ruining the atmosphere, and he tried to stop her from taking the flag off, but jammed his leg on some Bosslar dolls on the ground. He couldn't believe the fact that she was treating his beloved treasures like trash, so he apologized to the dolls on her behalf. He then brought up the fact that Desumi rejected that monster promotion and cried while asking her why she turned it down. Fudo explained to him that Desumi reached that decision after a long, hard consideration, but before he could yap any further, Urami sent him flying with a brutal back fist. Urami told him he knew nothing about her sister and asked him to stay out of their family drama. When Desumi went to check on Fudo, he told her Urami was almost as strong as her, and Desumi advised him not to speak about her life like that because Urami had a big sister complex. Fudo accidentally turned on the television, and they watched a commercial where Fudo was advertising the latest brand of Pepsi. Immediately, Desumi's dad saw the Red Ranger on screen. He started ranting about how he hated him and how he wanted Desumi to rip his guts out. He told Desumi to stop wasting time on her studies and focus on training instead so that she'd become a full-time member of Gecko when she's done with high school. Fudo noticed how sad Desumi was, so he humbly begged her dad on her behalf to let her go to college. Urami then accused him of turning her invincible sister into a weak-minded idiot, and she tried to poke his eyes out, but Desumi grabbed her hand. Urami asked her to let go of her hand, but Desumi looked at her with a terrifying stare while telling her to stop. This made Urami cry and lock herself inside a closet. Fudo once again begged the old fart to let Desumi go to college, but he told him to back off. Fudo refused. so Desumi's father challenged him to a duel. The old man charged at Fudo, but suddenly sent himself flying into the wall behind him. Fudo was confused by this display of madness, so he explained that he'd spent years training with Gecko in order to develop his self-defeat skill. He admitted that he took no pride in it, but Fudo stretched out his hand to him and said he understood, because the Gecko foot soldiers he'd clapped so far as the Red Ranger didn't lose in the stylish way that he did. He helped the old man back to his feet, and Desumi's dad said he now knew that Fudo dedicated his life to protecting Desumi the same way he devoted himself to learning the defeat skill. Desumi's dad said he was a promising young man and agreed to discuss the university matter with them another time before heading out. After he left, Desumi apologized for all the mess, but Fudo said it's okay because he'd get to attend the same university as her. Desumi thanked Fudo for everything and said goodbye to him. After he left, Urami saw her sister looking at Fudo affectionately, and she decided that she'd never accept him as a lover for Desumi. Some years ago, Urami was getting bullied by a bunch of chumps in the playground before Desumi showed up and scared them off with a threatening stare. After they left, Desumi shared a drink with Urami and told her that she needed strength in order to survive. In the present, Urami and Desumi were seated beside each other on a bus, and Urami got jealous when she saw Desumi having a fun chat with Fudo. They went to the Gecko headquarters, and Urami was pleased when she saw the foot soldiers treat her sister like royalty. However, Desumi told the men to be more casual with her and even went as far as showing off her new look to them. Afterwards, they went to the conference room where Urami introduced herself to Boslar as Desumi's sister, and everyone said they had high hopes for her as a future Gecko soldier. Desumi then dragged her away to have some snacks in the city. She took Urami to a mall where she bought different outfits, and Urami suddenly decided to leave. Desumi held her back and asked why she was leaving. Urami said the sister she looked up to no longer existed and called her a weakling before walking away. Urami sat alone on a staircase, and she remembered how she used to be bullied when her sister left their hometown for Tokyo. Back then, she used to spend her days holed up in her room, while the rest of her family watched Desumi fight against the heroes on television. Over time, her parents updated her on all of Desumi's achievements. When they told her about Desumi's monster promotion, she finally came out of her room and told them she wanted to be like Desumi. Back in the present, Urami started crying over the fact that Fudo made her sister become soft, and some hooligans showed up to bully her. She was about to fight back, but her brain suddenly turned off when they called her an emo girl, and they continued to insult her until Desumi showed up. Desumi handed her a crepe and told her that she was the strongest she'd been in her entire life. The hooligans started rage-baiting Desumi, so she let them know that she was the real bad guy and destroyed them in seconds. Afterwards, they ate the crepes together, and Desumi advised her sister to fall in love because it was what she needed to survive. Urami complained that it wasn't the catchphrase she used to tell her, so Desumi patted her on the head and assured her that she'd understand someday. Sometime later, Urami made her way home on a plane, and she realized that her sister's new friendly personality wasn't all that bad, but still decided that she'd end Fudo when she joins Gecko. Some days later, Fudo and Desumi were chilling in a private spot while their teams went to war again, and she handed him a flyer for the Kokute Festival, which was a festival in her school. Desumi asked Fudo if he'd be free for it then next weekend and noted that her class would be doing a maid cafe. Fudo's brain suddenly short-circuited when he imagined Desumi in a maid costume, and he told her he'd give his life to attend the event. She told him to make sure he comes on Sunday, which was the festival's last day because there was a legend at Kokute High School which involved a sculpture called the Kokute Moon. It said that couples who hung out there and took pictures became invincible couples, and Fudo agreed to her plan despite the fact that he already saw them as an invincible couple. He pointed out that the festival would be extremely crowded, and they made it their personal mission to become an invincible couple without getting seen by anyone in the area. On the day of the festival, the students were all having fun at different booths, and eventually Fudo showed up with Hayato on his shoulders. Hayato rizzed up all the girls in the area at once, and they started taking photos of him while he bragged about his charms. Fudo asked Hayato why he was doing that, and Hayato replied that it was his punishment for attending that blissful event without inviting him along. Fudo told him to be more subtle with his flexing, but Hayato refused and stood on his shoulders while transforming repeatedly into his ranger form. Fudo eventually dropped him on the floor and snuck away. However, some fans started chasing him, so he texted Desumi that he couldn't come to their class immediately because things were now complicated. Meanwhile, Hojo suddenly grabbed Desumi's phone from behind, and after Fudo's message, she asked her if she was meeting her boyfriend. Desumi said she wasn't, so Hojo asked to hang out at the Kokute Moon with her so they'd become an invincible couple. Desumi got creeped out by her and ran away. Meanwhile, two ugly extras were having a romantic time together before Discipline Officer Kiki crashed their party and warned them not to get lovey-dovey because it wasn't the purpose of the event. After the two idiots ran away, Kyoko accused Kiki of being a jealous loner, and Kiki denied her accusations before swearing to her that she wouldn't leave any couple standing. Kyoko started cuddling up with Culver and Bear, and Kiki was surprised that the sight of an overgrown bear wasn't causing mass panic at school, but then she noticed some cosplayers in the area. Kyoko bid Kiki farewell, and when she walked away with Bear, Kiki loudly declared that she'd destroy every couple around. Meanwhile, Fudo was hiding out in a haunted house when Desumi arrived, and he was instantly charmed by her maid outfit. He started glazing her until she pushed him to another part of the room. She apologized to Fudo for all the mess he was passing through. and Fudo replied that it was all worth it because he got to glance at her maid outfit. Desumi then presented Fudo with some homemade cookies, and her maid act made him feel like the luckiest master in the world. When they were done eating the cookies, Desumi expressed her concern that it would be impossible for them to be alone at the festival, but Fudo said he believed they could overcome whatever the world threw at them. He held her hand and swore to become an invincible couple with her, and she suggested they wait there for the time being. Just then, the romance terminator Kiki showed up and started attacking them with her kendo stick, so they decided to split up. Desumi ran to the hallway, and she felt safe until Hojo tackled her to the ground. Hojo said she promised to go to the Kokute moon with her, but Desumi replied that she did no such thing. Meanwhile, Fudo was outside watching couples line up to go on the Kokute moon, and he realized that he had little time left. Just then, Hayato jumped on his shoulder again and said he promised to give him a horse ride for the entire day. Fudo said he did no such thing, and they were suddenly surrounded by adoring fans who started taking pictures of them. The Kokute moon was unveiled on the stage, and the MC told all couples to gather around the front entrance. Desumi ran through the hallway faster than Kyuubi mode Naruto.
Why are you running?
While Hojo chased her down, and she eventually arrived at the nurse's office, where she asked the Blood Princess Kira to ask for her help. Kira reminded her not to call her that at school, and she apologized before begging her to hold off Hojo while she heads out for an important errand. Kira said Bosslar would be furious if he heard that she used her powers at school, and Desumi tried begging her again, but she refused. Desumi then promised to give her a Bosslar doll in exchange for her help, because she knew Kira was madly in love with Bosslar, and Kira agreed to help her, so she jumped out of the window. After she left, Hojo tried to follow her, but Kira held her back. Hojo tried to kick her head off, but Kira blocked with her fist. Meanwhile, Desumi arrived at the yard where she saw Hayato treating Fudo like an actual horse while the crowd cheered, and Kiki came by to ask for her help. Desumi told her she was busy with something, and Kiki realized that the festival was in romance mode, so she asked Desumi if she had a boyfriend. Just then, Kiki sensed Hayato's presence, and when he noticed her, he immediately started chasing her around again. After they left, Fudo and Desumi hid in the corner and started brainstorming about a plan that would allow them to go on the Kokute moon without getting noticed by the crowd. Desumi saw Kyoko yelling at the idiot who was cosplaying as Culver and Bear, so she came up with an idea. When she shared the idea with Fudo, he agreed to go along with it, so they both transformed into their battle forms. Afterwards, they walked to the Kokute moon together in their costumes, and the crowd cheered for them because they thought they were cosplayers wearing extremely high-quality costumes. On the Kokute moon, Desumi told Fudo that she looked forward to a day when they could be a couple with their heads held high, and added that she'd enjoy their little secret until that day came. The cameraman told them that it was time to take the picture, so they smiled together while he took the photo. Sometime later, the Gelato 5 were squaring off against the Gecko forces, and they tried to activate their sword guns, but the weapons suddenly broke apart. This allowed the Gecko team to defeat them, and the Gecko princess responsible for this malfunction, Judgment Princess Ranran, posed with a bunch of handyman tools. A while later at the Gecko base, Desumi was having lunch with Kiki and Kyoko, and she pointed out that Ranran was always by herself. Kiki explained that she was the ideal Gecko soldier because she was a perpetual loner who performed missions alone, and Kyoko said she looks cute when she takes off her mask. Desumi decided to go talk to Ranran, and when she asked her to join their table, Ranran suddenly put on her mask before leaving. A monster named Drone Rabbit apologized to Desumi, and revealed that Ranran was a member of her squad who was trained specially in covert operations and espionage, which was why she avoided interpersonal relationships. A while later, Desumi met Ranran by the hallway and gave her a letter which said that she was invited to a special princess strategy meeting at Desumi's room that night. That evening, Kiki and Kyoko were in Desumi's room, wearing their pajamas, and Hojo was also there in a mask holding Desumi tightly. Kiki guessed that Desumi organized that meeting in order to get closer to Ranran, and said there was no way Ranran was coming. However, they heard the doorbell ring, which led them to believe that the Judgment Princess had arrived, but when they opened the door, they saw Fudo. Desumi immediately freaked out, and Kiki was about to throw hands, but the Red Ranger pulled off the disguise to reveal that it was actually Ranran. She asked Desumi how she figured out her identity, and Desumi said it was because she knew Fudo would never take his shoes off in such a hazardous fashion. She also pointed out that the muscles in her disguise were smaller than Fudo's, and the girls praised her for knowing her rival very well. A while later, Desumi made some elite dishes and the girls feasted together. Ranran asked about the strategy meeting, so Kyoko explained to her that it was simply a social gathering which Desumi put together so they'd get closer to each other. Ranran asked why it was necessary to get closer, and Kiki told her to just have fun because Desumi always got her way. Kyoko pointed out that Kiki was also having fun, and she immediately denied it. Desumi handed Ranran some takoyaki to try out, and when she ate it, she suddenly transformed into Fudo, before telling her that it was delicious. This startled everyone, so Kiki yelled at her to cut it out. The girls spent the next several hours doing fun activities together, and it eventually got to a point where Desumi suggested having a romance talk. Kiki accused her of being a rom-com junkie, so she told her that being in love could inspire her in work. Ranran asked if loving was beneficial, and when Desumi said it was, she asked her to describe the effects of being in love. Desumi said it made every day feel joyous, like everything around her was shining, and this made Ranran accuse her of being in a state of love. Desumi tried to deny it, but when Ranran transformed her face into Fudo's, she started blushing. The cringe queen changed the subject by giving Ranran's scarf as a friendship gift, and when Ranran asked if she was her friend, she said yes. Desumi gave the rest of the girls the scarves she made for them, and they praised her crafting skills. Later that night, Ranran tried to leave quietly without waking anyone, but Desumi met her outside and thanked her for coming for the hangout. Ranran thanked her for inviting her and admitted that she initially didn't have any plans to socialize with them but ended up enjoying herself during the gathering. Desumi said she could come see them again sometime, and Ranran nearly gave her a heart attack when she transformed into Fudo. After leaving the room, she stared at the scarf Desumi made her and then did a Naruto run as she made her way back home. Sometime later, Culver and Bear and the Rangers were facing off against each other on a snowy mountain, and this time both teams couldn't charge at each other because of the snow which covered them. Meanwhile, the lovebirds were having some hot chocolate in an ice cave, and Fudo informed Desumi that his book had finally been published, so she congratulated him for it. He informed her that he was going to have a signing at the bookstore the next day, and she promised to show up for it. The next day, Desumi's friends invited her for a movie after school, but she told them she couldn't come because she had a book signing to attend. They noticed she was all red, and when they asked her about it, she suddenly got dizzy and collapsed on the ground. She tried to crawl to the book signing like Spider-Man, but her body didn't hold up, so her friends carried her to the nurse's office. Her friends informed Kira that Desumi was sick, so she asked them to leave her in her care. After they left, she put Desumi on bed rest, and the Reaper Queen felt sad that she wouldn't get to attend Fudo's signing. When she woke up from her nap, she noticed that she was chained to the bed. She tried to get away, but Kita suddenly took off her uniform and started cleaning up her body. When Desumi's friends told Kiki that Desumi was in the nurse's office, she got scared because she knew the crazy blood princess treated everyone in her care like an infant. She told Kyoko about this, and they cooked up a plan to defeat Kira while running to the infirmary. When they arrived, they saw that Kira had already put Desumi to sleep in a baby costume, and they tried to trick her by playing sick, but she used a trapdoor to send them to a different section of the hospital where they'd receive their own special torture. That evening, Fudo arrived at the infirmary, and he was stunned to see Desumi's outfit. With sleepy eyes, she asked him to read a bedtime story to her and rested on his lap. Fudo read her the bedtime story until she suddenly woke up and threw a pillow in his face out of embarrassment. She told him she had a fever, and he told her that he didn't get a single customer at his book signing. However, she asked to get the first autograph, so he signed the book for her. In the special room, Kira was reading a bedtime story to Kiki and Kyoko, who were napping on her lap in baby costumes. Some days later, Bossler looked at his ultimate creation in a pod, and he claimed that the world would belong to Gecko very soon. Elsewhere, Fudo was feasting on some sweets which Desumi made him, and he told her he was going to be in another commercial soon. He showed her the outline for the commercial, and when she asked what kind of commercial it was, he said it was a bridal thing. Desumi wasn't pleased to hear this, and she freaked out even more when she found out that the person he was doing the wedding advert with was a big star named Anne, who was a huge fan of the Red Ranger. She read through the scenes of the commercial, and it seemed very similar to a wedding, so she forbade Fudo from accepting the job. Fudo told her he had to because the rest of the team turned them down. Hayato refused to take the offer because he felt his fans would feel distraught if they saw him in that commercial, and emo boy Daigo said it wasn't compatible with his image. Fudo explained that he was the only one left, but Desumi still insisted on him refusing, so he asked why she was being selfish. He tried to explain further, but she threw the outline book in his face and ran away with tears in her eyes. Haru suddenly appeared behind Fudo and told him she overheard their entire conversation. Fudo asked her why Desumi was salty about the commercial, so she told him to picture the one he loved the most cutting a cake with a total stranger. The thought of Desumi cutting a cake with a random nobody made Fudo nearly have a heart attack, and he realized that he'd been a fool. Haru told him he could still make it right. So when he got home, he told Gelato to let him withdraw from the commercial, since he couldn't do the cake cutting scene. Gelato refused and reminded him that Kishimoto Weddings was a very important sponsor to them. Fudo begged him more intensely. So Gelato showed him a graphics display which revealed that the production of their combined weapon had been completed, thanks to the funding of Kishimoto Weddings. He reminded him that it played a huge role in world peace, and told him not to be unreasonable. Fudo wondered if world peace was worth making Desumi unhappy, and he suddenly got an idea when he remembered the sweets that Desumi made for him. He decided to make his own cake, and performed a private cake-cutting ceremony with Desumi before the commercial, but he ended up making literal dog poop on his first try. He struggled for days to make the perfect cake, and Desumi waited for him to message her but got nothing. One day, Kiki and Kyoko tried to approach Desumi, but they noticed that she was overflowing with an ominous aura. They thought she'd reincarnated as a Bleach character, but she was simply upset over the fact that Fudo hadn't messaged her in days. Just then, the Gecko executives were summoned to the conference room, and when they arrived there, Bosslar announced that they were witnessing the birth of their greatest monster yet, the Ultimate Phantom. He said their diligent efforts was what made it possible, and asked them to celebrate the fact that the chambers were now filled to the brim with negative energy. Desumi started crying when she heard the word celebrate, because she remembered the cake thing, and Kiki said she felt her, because their dreams were finally coming true. Bosslar then activated the device and it created a giant monster that looked like a baby. Everyone was confused by its appearance, and Bosslar tried to give the monster some orders, but it punched him into the corner. The ultimate phantom then destroyed the gecko base and flew away. Heat Princess Hojo chased it down and blasted it with flames. Kiki followed up by spamming it with claw attacks, and the other princesses blasted the phantom with their ultimate moves as well. However, the ultimate phantom laughed at their attacks, and the monsters fired shots of their own. But the beast tanked it as well. The ultimate phantom then swallowed Culverin Bear, and his cannons appeared on its back. The phantom fired a powerful blast at the gecko executives and flew away. Meanwhile, Fudo finally managed to make a decent cake, and Gelato informed him that it was time to head to the shoot. Back at the gecko base, Desumi was crying over the fact that Fudo hadn't called her yet, and Kyoko cried as well over the fact that her hubby was swallowed by the overgrown baby monster. Desumi finally got a call from Fudo, but she chose to ignore it, and she felt like she'd been a fool all this time. Meanwhile, Fudo was at the set of the commercial shoot, and Anna told him it was time to get started with the scene. When the director called for the scene to begin, Fudo refused to cut the cake, and suddenly the ultimate phantom burst into the room. The news reporter arrived on a helicopter, and she advised the people living in the area to stay somewhere safe before revealing that Fudo was filming in the area. Hearing this, Desumi suddenly got alarmed. At the film venue, Fudo saw that the cake he made for Desumi was destroyed during the monster's entrance, so he started to mourn it. Just then, the other rangers appeared and they all transformed into their ranger form. Before charging at the phantom, they all blasted the monster with their ultimate moves, but it didn't even leave a scratch on the phantom. Just when the rangers were about to give up, Kyoko and Kiki arrived and started attacking the monster. The phantom put them down easily and gained Kyoko's steel manipulation powers by swallowing her. Using this ability, it restrained Kiki and then ate the wedding cake, causing its appearance to change into a giant cake monster. Desumi arrived at the scene, and when she saw Fudo's cake, she realized that he'd been planning a romantic cake-cutting scene for them all along. Meanwhile, the rangers combined their weapons into a giant sword called Gelato Claymore, but the monster immediately captured Fudo's teammates. Fudo couldn't properly carry the weapon because his arm was injured, so Desumi helped him hold up the sword. Everyone was surprised to see the two rivals working together, and the overpowered lovebirds evaded all the Ultimate Phantom's attacks before destroying it with a slash. Some hours later, Fudo and Desumi were talking in a hidden spot when suddenly a smaller version of the ultimate version appeared and started calling them Papa and Mama. When the reporter approached them, the lovebirds pulled another Hollywood-level performance to convince her that they were arch-rivals. Which of the gecko baddies in the show would you love to clap with your sacred gelato? Desumi? Kyoko? Or maybe you'd prefer getting pampered by Kira? Let us know on the comment. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.